So, good evening. So this is a recording that I'm making very late in the evening. We're under. So forgive the tiredness. I am under. I am quite tired, and feel no small amount of pain owing to a cracked rib. So I am medicating in the traditional way, which is I've got a very nice glass of wine. So I will briefly go through the presentation I gave earlier to my team. This is the second time I've recorded this because I stuffed it up the first time. So technology, yes, wonderful. So the CEO of NVIDIA was once quoted saying to give AI your hardest problems, and I've kind of found that to be mostly true. Certainly, in the exploration of AI that I've been going through recently, I have found AI to be pleasantly capable at what it does, and increasingly been giving it harder and harder challenges, and with certain caveats, it has been performing remarkably well, which is both wonderful and disturbing. So today we're going to be talking about vibe coding, which is the trendy name given to the idea of rather than writing software character by character in the traditional way, like your grandparents would have done. Rather, you have a active conversation with an AI agent which writes the code for you. I explained this to my team that you need to handle the what and the why, and for the most part, leave the how to the machine. This is, for me, this was quite an easy transition because as a senior developer, you end up having to think like this anyway. These days, I very rarely write code myself. I'm not largely training other people to write code. I still need to understand how to code because I need to understand what is required, what expectations are needed, what needs to be done, and why it needs to be done, which is the more strategic point. But I, generally speaking, leave my team to handle the actual implementation of that requirement. Obviously, if there's certain implementation specifications, I will state them. If there are some constrictions, I need it in a certain language, using a certain framework, whatever, I will state those. But largely, the details are not my problem. However, I was explaining to my team that realistically, now that these tools exist, I can't really ever justify hiring a junior developer again. Which means my junior team are probably going to have to make a transition to more senior level because they're going to be instructing agents rather than writing the code themselves, which is a bit of a step change for some. But I did stress that for many, even if they leave us and go to other companies, for example, the expectation of what a developer is going to accomplish is going to change, even if they choose not to use the tools. Reason being is the assumption is, yes, you're going to use the tools, so your manager is going to expect something that if you use the AI agent would take an hour. If you spend a week doing it, questions are going to be asked. So you kind of have to, love it or not, you kind of have to make takes an account to this. So anyway, this is largely the process of vibe coding. Really, this should be a circle because it's iterative. So step one, obviously, is you design. So you think what you need to build, why you need to build it, roughly what steps are needed to be taken to build it. But you need to think strategically. You need to think at a high level of I needed to do this, I needed to do this, I needed to do this. Not in terms of functions, classes, language things, and even algorithms. Obviously, if those are particularly important implementation details, you need to say it. But largely, you're thinking at a much higher level. The next step is you describe this to your AI agent in as much detail as you possibly can, specifying everything that you think is important, what to do, what not to do. The more detail you can provide, the better, because that sets the AI on rails. The AI will fill in the blanks. Sometimes it does this intelligently. Mostly, actually, it does it quite intelligently. Well, that's been my experience. But sometimes it will go off into the weeds, and you need to watch for this. So step three, typically these tools will give you an implementation plan back, and this is something that I actually would wish my team, my flesh and blood team would do. We probably should be doing this, which is, saying, so an implementation plan would be a summary of what changes the AI is going to make, how it's going to, its rough approach, questions it has, that sort of thing. And most of the tools allow you to comment line by line, give feedback, corrections, that sort of thing. Once you're happy, you set the AI off on its task. And then you get to step four, which I'd argue is the most important step, and certainly seems to be where certainly my team, and reading reports on the internet about teams that are increasingly using AI, are spending their time, and that's reviewing the code changes and the pull requests. So using the AI really dramatically speeds up the speed in which you can put together code changes, but it does nothing for the review step, which is the most important. You need to make sure that the code makes sense, that it's safe, that the AI hasn't hallucinated vulnerabilities into it, and that you understand it, because you do need to still know how to code. You do need to still understand what it is that the AI has generated, because fundamentally you, the human, are responsible. You can't blame the AI if it does something silly. You have to be responsible for that code change, and you need to own it. So, there you go. So what vibe coding is not, it's not using ChatGPT, although that is a useful tool, don't get me wrong. I use it all the time basically as an ad-free interface to Google, and also to dump like complicated log files and say, just tell me what's wrong here. I ain't got time to read. So yes, vibe coding is not writing code line by line. It is having a conversation with the AI. A good prompt looks exactly like the prompt you would give to a junior developer, in that it's very detailed, it is step by step, it is unambiguous. You specify any core important considerations, do's and don'ts, constraints, how you want the output. Don't let the AI riff if you don't want it to. There are lots of tools. It would be useless for me to specify tools individually, because if I did that, given how fast given how fast things are moving, anything I say would be out of date. I quite like Google Anti-Gravity because they give you a very generous usage allowance and the interface is quite nice, but I've heard really good things about Claude Code. However, I'm too cheap right now. Lots of things have AI sprinkles. Use the tool that you want, but do use the tools. Do get used to using the tools because, as I said before, the expectation going forward is that you are using the tools. So if you're not, you have to explain. So I said about prompts, good prompts. Good prompt on the left, bad prompt on the right. You'll notice the difference. The one on the left is an abridged version of one I actually used to build a tool. Crucially, it is detailed and it is abridged because if I gave the full prompt, it wouldn't fit on the page. That should tell you something. The more detail you give, the better you get results you get. At least that's been my experience. The AI can be quite clever. You can tell it to look at API endpoints. You can tell it to look at specifications. I even told it when I was doing one tool to look at a spec document from EOSC on Zenodo and adjust things according to that spec. I didn't think it would work. Tried it with the AI. It worked. Don't ask me. Anyway, more detail is more better. The one on the right, obviously not enough detail. Leaves too much to the ambiguation. Too much that is ambiguous. Be warned, the AI will probably still have a good crack. It will still give the good old college try. What you get out of it at the end, God only knows. But good luck. So some tips then. Treat the AI like an enthusiastic junior developer. It is eager to please. It will go away and do what you tell it to do. Check the work. Say what you want to build clearly, which means you must know yourself. You must know what you want to build yourself and you must know roughly how you want to build it. You can't just switch off your brain. You should use clear affirmative language. Must not maybe, could you, kinda. Vagueness is bad. If you get garbage out, it means your prompt was not clear. You were asking too much, you didn't specify clearly enough. Break the implementation down to smaller chunks, be as unambiguous as possible. It is you that is at fault if you get bad results from the AI. The AI just does what you tell it to do. So moving on, skills. Skills are how you put your AI on rails. These things should be used sparingly. I've so far only created a handful of skills, and only when I've had absolutely necessary. It avoids repetition, which is always a good thing. It allows you to explain quirks in your inherited code base, your legacy code base, but people have tied themselves up into knots, gone off into the weeds by over specifying skill files. It's not a programming exercise. You've got an example of a template on the right there, but these things are largely natural language. Again, you write them as if you would a prompt, but they're quite handy. So in one code base, which has this bizarre build structure, rather than explain it, I just wrote a skills file to tell the AI to, hey, if you want to build this file and to build this application to test, you need to run these steps of things first. Don't try and just npm build it. It won't work. So yeah, that's the kind of thing. So this is a topic in and of itself. Again, fast moving, but be aware that these things exist. This is a very much the whole AI coding ecosystem is evolving. So there's almost certainly going to be a new paradigm out next week, but just be aware these things exist and could make things easier for you. So, moving on, case studies. So, these are some real world examples based on my own experience that I did recently. So be aware that this is from my day job. So, some of these things might not make much sense to you, dear reader, dear viewer. But I hope that you'll get the idea. So the first one, these is a new platform that we built, which is for the visualization and exploration of scientific data and metadata that is deposited in our platform. And this was it's a new tool that was built by one of my team members. And he did a really good job plugging away at it. Then he very inconsiderately went away on paternity leave, and I needed to pick up the code base, get to grips with it quickly, and I needed to present something important periodic review meeting. So I adopted it. I quickly I quickly implemented most of the core functionality, talking to endpoints and that sort of thing. And then I completely rethemed it to follow the design guidelines of a lot of our new tools, our UI UX guidelines. And I did this by taking a screenshot of one of the existing tools, dropping it into the chat and explaining to the AI, hey, using this as a style guide, please make the appropriate updates to this code base to make it look correct. And then we had a little bit of a back and forth. It got a few things a little bit wrong, a few tweaks I needed to make. And much of the rest of it was the same. I implemented skeleton on-demand loading for most of the API with single commands. And yeah, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Did about a week, several weeks worth of work in an evening after hours, I might add, if anyone wants to pay me overtime. So we did an GraphQL upgrade. So this is one of our GraphQL. This is a tool. It's our GraphQL server, which consolidates a whole host of APIs into a single uniform interface that people can query. Very, very powerful, very core to our platform. Anyway, it was a little bit out of date in terms of the libraries it was using. It was using Express GraphQL. It was using Axios for queries, which recently got compromised, but Node has moved on, so it's better to use native fetch in most cases. Conceptually, upgrading all of this was relatively straightforward. However, it was sat on our to-do list for a very long time because it was an absolute ball ache that no one wants to do, which turns out to be the perfect job for AI. And I did the entire upgrade in about half an hour. Yeah, again, wow. The theme for this website. So so my personal blog needed a little bit of an update, I thought. So what I did is I took a free skin that I liked off one of the HTML theme websites out there. I dropped it in the chat. I told it to use the assets to build a working WordPress theme, which it did straight away. I then had a little bit of a back and forth to tweak it visually how I liked, added a few extra features, for example, some custom shortcuts I had in the old theme, adding some SEO enhancements like JSON-LD and all that sort of stuff. And I was pretty much ready to go, I'd say about an hour. Which is a little bit disturbing because I'm sure you're aware if you were a freelancer, everyone pretty much cut their teeth writing WordPress themes or implementing WordPress themes, taking someone's design theme and turning it into a WordPress plugin. That was your bread and butter, and yeah, that's an industry that's gone. So yeah, wow. And of course, yeah, this slide deck. So the reason why I'm using this slide deck rather than the Instruct slide deck was to prove a point. I needed a slide deck for my personal business, and for some presentations I've got coming up. And I could pay a designer. Great, yeah, I know, but I already had a website. I took a screenshot, I dropped it into Claude and said, could you give me a PowerPoint slide deck template, a logo, and a light and dark Word document so that I can write some proposals? And it just did it, which was wow. Yeah, I mean, you may or may not like the logo. It's sort of incredibly subjective. It even gave me some sort of arty-farty blurb about what it was doing. Apparently, it's the alchemical fire symbol with the earth symbol embedded to give it grounding. I thought that was quite cool. Anyway, point is, it'll do until something better comes along. And it took a couple of minutes to do. So yeah, again, wow. So some take homes. What does this all mean for you? Yes, we got the. Oh, sorry, lent on the keyboard. That. So yes, we got the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. The AI is exceptionally good at boilerplates, clean frameworks, known frameworks, I should say, as well. But it does reasonably well on custom stuff. We've got some pretty custom code bases going on at Instruct. We've had a lot of developers over the years who have, some of whom have been quite eccentric, would be a kind way of saying. But yes, we have got a lot of very custom code base. It did quite well. But that might have been down to the quality of my prompts. Again, prompting, telling the AI information, like saying, oh yeah, this is where the plugins are. That sort of thing does go a long way to helping it understand your code base. Those sorts of understandings, by the way, would be good things for put in skills files. Anyway, it dramatically lowers the activation effort needed to test new ideas. Is something I found. I've managed to spool up very quick proof of concepts of things very quickly. And lots of problems do become very shallow. So we have been going through our backlog of tickets of things that we wanted to do if we had enough time, but didn't. And I personally have been knocking off a lot of the ones that have annoyed me. And you'll see some of those come out in the next version of Aria that we release. But yeah, it's quite incredible. Bad, yes. I would still actually argue this is actually still a good thing. You still need to know how to code because your mileage will significantly improve if you're a skilled developer who use the AI tool. It will supercharge what you're doing. You can work some absolute miracles. However, if you're an idiot, you will blow your foot off. So you do need to still know how to code. The going at it just completely blankly, you can get so far, but then you will get to a point where the AI gets confused, and it's just bad times. Anyway, you need to do it. You have a real risk of not understanding the code over time, and this relates to the previous point. The code base gets more and more bloated, more and more complicated, and more not understood, which is a elevating risk of failure. And yes, tokens get expensive. If you just let rip, You can burn through tokens very quickly, and there have been some horror stories with, for example, using Claude in Teams, where they've managed to run up very massive bills. In one case, where the key got leaked, but just through general usage, you can burn up quite a lot of usage. But this is also balanced by the fact that, well, how many FTEs of people is that replacing, the AI replacing? So, yeah, well, bear that in mind. This is a philosophical question. And yes, ugly. AI security is terrible. There's a lot of compromised code. A lot of the libraries can be hallucinated in are fake. AI routers can inject malware, and your agent is effectively a rootkit on your computer. So bear that in mind. Business models change. So none of the current AI folks are profitable. They've built absolutely immense data centers that will need to be replaced in 4 years, using ungodly amounts of energy. And how are they paying for this? Don't know. Anyway, moving on. So at some point, the business model is going to change, and it seems to be they're following the drug dealer business model, where they are getting you addicted and then jacking up the price. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the way it looks to me. And yes, corollary to that, dependency leads to vulnerability. Do not overly depend on the AI for your core workflows. If you are absolutely dependent on a third party for your core workflows and they switch it off, what happens to your business? There have been some horror stories about this recently as well. Bear this in mind. Did I say AI security is terrible? I do mean terrible. AI hallucinates all kinds of nonsense. The diagram I have on the right is from a paper I recently saw, which pointed out that the AI uses several hops between your tool and the model provider, and those hops, each one of those hops strips SSL and resends. If one of those is compromised, yes, this is not end-to-end encryption. If one of those is compromised, that agent, that compromised node can inject and read everything you say. Bad times. If you let it, AI will send anything into your repo effectively in the clear over the internet. Do not put keys, passwords, etc. into your repo or anywhere that the AI can see, because otherwise, bad times. And you are letting a third party perform direct edits. I mean, to a large extent, this is exactly like pasting in random shit you've seen on Stack Overflow, but more engaged, more insidious. Be aware that the AI can produce some very truthy looking code that hides some very nasty things. You need to do your reviews. So, and finally, AI is probably here to stay. It is overhyped, but it is also not nothing. If it is the right tool for the job, you can use it, and a lot of problems suddenly become shallow. If it is not the right tool for the job, do not use it. Use your best judgment. However, whatever the business model it shakes out, the technology is a force multiplier if you can use it. Incorrectly, you can waste an awful lot of time and shoot yourself in the foot. So your mileage may vary. It really is a Swiss Army chainsaw. Learn the tools, use them well, but for the love of God, do not switch off your brain. You have to still think about what you're doing. Again, enthusiastic junior developer. It's an infinitely scalable number of graduate students. It will make mistakes. You have to catch it. It is your responsibility. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. You can't blame the AI for making a mistake. And AI makes mistakes. It makes a lot of them. Take a look at the photo on the right, the image that I generated on the right, which is very cool and sums up a lot of what I've been feeling, which is learn to love the tools. But as you can see, there are a lot of mistakes. Anyway, here endeth my TED talk, and if you want to, and let me just interject my obligatory shill. If you want to talk to me professionally, email address there, comment on this blog, yada yada yada. I look forward to hearing from you soon.